Hi, everyone. Good morning, Kiev. As Yaroslav said, my name is Romain Berthomé, and I'm really glad to be here today to talk about roadmaps and how we rely people and teams around our roadmap at Uber. So a bit about my experience first. As Yaroslav mentioned, I'm currently a product manager at Uber, where I'm working for our new brand, Uber Money, that we just announced recently in Las Vegas. In my early days at Uber, I've been working on what we call partner payments. That basically mean allowing our drivers, couriers, using the Uber platform to onboard a payment method and receive all the earnings they have accrued on the platform onto that payment method. More recently, I've been moving to a new initiative called Uber Pay. Uber Pay is allowing third-party merchants or partner to integrate with the Uber Money stacks in order to integrate it within their ecosystem. What that means for our user is that they can use seamlessly their preferred local payment method of choice everywhere on the platform. But Uber was not the start of my journey. As Yaroslav mentioned, I have been PM in different companies. One of them was Rocket Internet, where I was focusing on affiliate marketing challenges such as acquisition, on-site conversion optimization, and as well retention. I've as well been working for Johnson & Johnson, a big pharmaceutical American company. Probably a lot of you are aware of their consumer-facing brands, such as Nicorette, Neutrogena, Biafine, Actifed, and so on. For Johnson & Johnson, I was mainly ensuring that the digital product experience we were providing were tying back with the goods or the products, the physical products that we were offering to the consumers. And last but not least, I have worked for Viadeo. So Viadeo is a LinkedIn competitor, so a social professional network. This is a French startup. They have around 60 million users all around the globe, mainly based in France and China. And for Viadeo, I was basically allowing any companies to find the best talent that fits their needs. So what I want to share with you today is some learnings I got from past companies about how to build roadmaps and what are the techniques I learned at Uber in order to improve and make that process smoother by rallying teams around your roadmap. First, let's take with 3 different experiences around building roadmaps. Just before we jump into it, I want to put a disclaimer here. This was my experience in those companies at the time I was in those companies. So things might have changed over time, and people in different part of the organization might have a different experience. The first one, I experienced it in my early days as a product manager when I was at Viadeo. As I mentioned, I was working really closely with the sales team as I was focusing on the B2B products. And my first iteration of roadmaps were basically ending up with my roadmaps entirely filled with sales input. You need to keep in mind that sales are good at one thing, selling your product to the consumers. But they are good at another thing, which is selling their customer pain point back to you as a product manager. So when you work closely with such a stakeholder, it's easy to get trapped into the loop and basically start having your entire roadmap only focusing on one consumer, on one stakeholder. The problem with that is that you end up only focusing on one customer, and if your product is a marketplace and so on, you will basically start losing customers on the other side of the fence. The other drawbacks of that approach is that it's as well focusing on the short term, and it's giving a wrong perception on how your product or the company is performing. At Uber, in order to avoid to only focus on one direction or to only focus working with sales or any other stakeholders, what we basically have is a holistic insight gathering process. So we ensure that before prioritizing our insights, we talk to our different users, we talk to our different stakeholders, marketing team, local ops on the ground, any customer support team, or any of the stakeholders we have at Uber. And then once we have all the insights, we try to stack run them based on a common metric. This makes our discussion around prioritization way smoother because we have a common baseline in order to ensure that we can compare each of the projects like apples to apples. The second one. So this is something I have experienced when I was working in flat organization or smaller organization, such as early day startups. And I'm sure for some of you that are working at startups, you have already experienced that. You basically spend days and nights gathering data, gathering your insights, talking to your user, talking to your stakeholders, and you finally, with your stakeholder and with your team, come up with your roadmap. And there is one step remaining, the CEO meeting, the roadmap review meeting. And after that meeting, your entire roadmap gets shifted without even including you in the process, without even including any stakeholders, and most part of the time without backing any of the reasoning by data or insights. The problem of such approach is that you will basically not back any of your reasoning with data, and you will operate totally in the dark. And as organizations are growing, relying only on the top management point of view for implicating your roadmap or for defining your roadmap, you tend to have a biased version of what the market is actually reflecting, because those people tend to be far and far from the operational day and from the market and the user input as the organization is scaling. So at Uber, in order to fix that issue, basically what we are doing is we ensure that we are sharing any of the experiments results, any of the user insight feedback that we get during user research. All those things get documented, get published online, and get shared with everyone in order to ensure that everyone within the organization, all the way to the top management level, can access all this useful information. What we do as well, even deeper, is that we have knowledge sharing session with our main stakeholders in order to go deep specifically in given topics or given learnings that we will want to leverage in the future. Ensuring that you basically share all those insights within the entire organization, ensure that everyone within the organization have the same and the common view of your product landscape. This makes all your decision around prioritization, roadmap definition, vision definition, way smoother with all the stakeholders you have. And last but not least, the third experience I went through, it's what I call the project-driven roadmap. So you experience that, or I experienced that, mainly in companies or departments where there were no clear vision for a given product that was defined. These are usually companies that focus on execution rather than building a long-term vision for their product. A parallel that you can draw is the project-driven roadmap is usually the belief that you don't need roadmap, or the roadmap can be replaced by a project list or just a backlog. The problem with such approach is that you tend to miss the big picture. And your product usually ending up looking like a succession of features and a lot of features all over the place that don't provide a consistent user experience for all your consumers using the product. So at Uber, in order to avoid that, what we basically do is we define early on, while we're building our MVP, the vision for the product. We go do some market research. As for a recent example, for the Uber Pay product that I'm working on, we went to different markets, try to understand the payment landscape in those different markets, assess the different solutions that are currently existing, their strengths, their weaknesses, do some user interview, and as well ask for feedback when we have built finally our vision and our roadmap, stakeholders, ask for stakeholder feedback. Having that kind of approach where you imply stakeholder really early in the funnel allow you to get early on feedback and basically have people bought in way earlier your vision or your roadmap. So let's take a step back for a minute, and after seeing those three examples, let's ask us a fundamental question. It's what is a roadmap and why are we even doing roadmap? So there is a lot of definition out there about what is a roadmap. One that I personally like is a roadmap is a strategic plan that defines a goal or a desired outcome and includes the different major steps or milestones that you need to build in order to reach it. Why I like that definition? It's basically because it encapsulates all the key concepts around roadmap. The first one, it's focusing on goals and outcomes rather than output. So it's focusing on the direction you are trying to reach, the destination. The second thing is that it's talking about milestone or major steps that you need to build. And it gives you enough room, enough space for the product execution at a later stage where you will be able to gather even more insights, talking to your user and digging deeper into your data. So one of the product leader within the payments org, the money org at Uber, is usually saying that your roadmap is successful if you are able, with a short amount of time, to decide if a stakeholder request or a new customer needs need to be prioritized. And in order to make that a bit more concrete, let's basically, the definition at Uber for what is a roadmap. So at Uber, a roadmap is a framework that helps you set and share your product direction. And we have break down this roadmap framework into 4 key areas. The first one is the vision. This is the destination. This is your dream. This is where you want the user to go in 3 to 5 years. The second one, this is the insights. This is all the data that are backing your reasoning and that are justifying your strategic choices. The third one is the themes. These are the big directions that you will work on for the next 6 months or for the next 3 months in order to make progress towards your vision. And finally, the OKRs, the objective and key result. This is how you will measure the success, how you will define if you have reached success. So to be even more concrete here, I want to share with you an example of our product roadmap or an extract of our product roadmap from H1 2018 for the partner payment team. So the first one, the vision, you see this is clearly framed in a destination manner, so sign up today, drive today, and earn today. So the focus here is that the promise here for the customer is we want to allow them to access their funds that they have accrued on the platform as soon as they start driving and as soon as they have started engaging with us. That's the vision. The insights, here we have put some quantitative insights, but obviously we're as well doing user research, and this is just an extract, so we as well put some user quotes that we have been gathered during the different user research trips that we have made. So here you see two examples. The themes, as I mentioned again, the big areas that you are focusing. As you see, it's not as granular as projects. It's made on purpose in order to give enough rooms for the product solution or the solution definition process to go a bit deeper on. And the OKRs, finally, split it in 2 buckets. The objectives that are qualitative, so they are not measurable. They basically give the direction and how you will measure if you are going toward the right direction. And the key results that are tying back to this objective. Those ones are measurable, and they are the ones that you are basically following up in order to ensure that you are meeting your objective. When you start using that framework, it's really easy to assess if a feature should be prioritized or not, or ask should be prioritized. Why? Because you have 3 questions to ask yourself. Is this new ask helping me making some progress toward my vision? Yes or no? Is the ask belonging to one of the teams I'm currently working on? Yes or no? Is the ask moving the needle in any of the KR or objectives that I have defined in my roadmap? Yes or no? If you hit 3 no on those questions, the likelihood you have to prioritize this feature is probably extremely low. So with such framework, you can really have easy answer to new asks that are coming while you are executing and delivering on your roadmap. Let's go deeper. So let's talk about each of those different key elements, the visions, the insight, the themes, and the OKRs. The vision, as I mentioned, this is your destination. This is your dream. This is the state you want the user to reach in 3 to 5 years. This is important to have this in your roadmap because it gives the entire context about your product. It's important to give that transparency to your stakeholders so they are able to understand the destination that you want to reach. Your roadmap is the path you're taking for the next 6 months. Without explaining the destination you want to reach, it's hard for stakeholders to map where you want to go. At Uber, as I mentioned before, we try to define our vision as early as possible whenever we actually start building our MVP. We ensure that our vision is as well updated, so we have a clear transparency with our stakeholder whenever we are changing it, and this is as well allowing us to keep focus and ensuring that we're still going towards the same destination. For example, for the areas I'm working on, payments and money, this is key for us. Why this is key? It's because we're a platform team. So the experience and the product we're building are surfaced across all the different LOBs at Uber. Payments work in the same way in rides, in eats, in transits, in all the different verticals. So having a vision defined early on is for you the opportunity to go and pitch that to the different stakeholders or the different internal consumers you have inside the companies and get feedback and get buy-in. So then it makes your roadmap definition process a way smoother. So the second part, when you have defined your vision, is to gather your different insights. The insights are the key part of your roadmap. It's really backing up your reasoning and your strategic choices. At Uber, we have divided the insight process into 3 different steps. That allows us to be more efficient gathering them because we have different responsibles for each of the different parts. The first one, get input from your user. Usually, product manager, UXR team, user research team, data scientist, data analyst are the responsible for such things. Get input from your user. At Uber, we use 2 types of data, qualitative and quantitative. For the quantitative data, we rely mainly on the dashboards that we're using on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that measure and provide us a view over the different KPIs that we're tracking for our products. And the other gold mine source of data we're using is everything coming through our support channel. For us, this is an opportunity to get user feedback at scale and then being able to prioritize feature based on the different feedback we got and the amount of feedback we got from the customer. On the qualitative side of things, as mentioned, we as well do user research, but we don't do them specifically for our roadmap process. We do them on a regular basis whenever we have a need for it, and we ensure that this process is really well documented, that we document the results in order to be able to use that at a later stage. So the second part, when you have gathered your user insights, is gather your stakeholder pain points. There is not only one user for your product. Other user might be internal as well. They might use your products, and they might be dependent on your product. At Uber, we ensure that we capture the insights and the feedback and the pain point from all our stakeholders. As I mentioned, from local ops operating on the ground to marketing to customer support. And for that, what we're doing is we are really involving them earlier in the roadmap definition process in order to ensure that we have the time to sit with them and to understand all their asks and their different pain points. We work with them in order to quantify the impact of the different asks they have in order, at the later stage, when we have defined the roadmap, to be able to agree with them on the different trade-offs we have made regarding prioritization. Having such a collaborative framework is really important with all your stakeholders because this avoids a lot of incomprehension regarding prioritization process. Okay. The last one, the third bucket, it's the tech piece. This is driven by your tech team, your engineering team, and basically as a product leader, what you're doing is you provide your tech team with your vision, with the different themes that you want to work on, with the different insights, and your tech team is responsible for ensuring that your products will work at scale and for different use cases. So that means that your product will work where millions of users will use it. Your product will work regardless of if you are working on one LOB or another one. For example, for Uber, rides, eats, transits, and so on. It's really important when you are working on a product like payments, for example. So payments at Uber is basically touched with every customer. For every trip, you have a payment interaction. So you need to ensure that your experience will work 24/7, will work at scale for all your customers, and that you are providing a constant and a similar experience to every user. When you got your vision, when you got and you have gathered all your insights, the next things are the themes. The themes are the areas, are the different vectors that you want to explore in the next 6 months, that you want to work on in order to make progress towards your roadmap, in order to make progress towards your vision. So how we define themes at Uber? We have 3 steps. The first one, everything starts with pillars. Pillars are defined company-wide or at an area level, for example, payments. And they are basically the key success factor for your product that have been identified. So, for example, in H1 2018, for partner payments, the different pillars were trust, efficiency, loyalty, compliance, and access. These were basically the 5 different pillars that we identify as key success factor for payments in Uber. Once you have defined your pillars, you basically are using the insights you have gathered at the previous stage, and you define what we call big rocks. Big rocks are epic or big milestones, and to give you a more concrete example, when we did that exercise in H1 2018, when we come up with the trust pillar, one of the big rocks that we're mapping to the trust pillar was the disbursement reliability. So it's an epic that your team will work on in order to basically drive incremental on the pillars that you have defined. So you have all your pillars at a company-wide level or at an area level. You have defined all your big rocks, which are basically the big milestone belonging to different pillars. And then what you start doing is, with the list of all the big rocks you have, you start looking at the common themes that you have. So, for example, and as I mentioned before, the common themes for us were reliability. How do we offer a reliable payment experience, whatever the time, whatever the numbers of users we have, the flexibility, how different payment experience can we offer, how many different payments methods can we offer to our users to be flexible for them. And the themes, what you need to take away from that, the themes are really the vector that you want to work on in order to make progress to your roadmap. Last but not least, the OKRs. So this is a famous concept that have been introduced by Google in the early days. If you don't know about OKRs, I definitely recommend you reading the book Measure What Matters by John Doerr. It's really explain how to use OKR, what OKRs are about, and how you can leverage them to make, let's say, faster decisions. We use OKRs in order to define what success looks like. So, as I mentioned earlier, OKRs, you can break them in 2 pieces. The first part, the objective. They are only qualitative and they can't be measured. At Uber, we tend to have 3 objectives in order to define if a product is successful. And what you have tying back to those objectives are the key results. So the key results are quantifiable. They can be measured, and they should be measured. At Uber, we have between 3 to 5 key Rs that are mapping to each of the objectives in order to ensure that we cover the entire spectrum of what we are measuring. We use this concept called MISI, mutually exclusive and encompassing basically everything. So how we use OKRs is we usually rank them from 0 to 1 or from 0 to 100. And at Uber, we consider an OKR to be it when you reach 70% of your target. This approach allows us to set ambitious goals in order to push the team to deliver more, but as well make the goal accessible in order to ensure that the team don't get dismotivated by too high targets. One of the key concepts we have at Uber is that we are aggregating the key Rs, and we have the same metric definition across the entire company. It's again about being able to compare apples to apples, right? So it makes your prioritization process way easier. Whenever a stakeholder is coming to you with a new ask and have quantified the impact, is coming back with the same metric as the one you measure for your other projects. And therefore, your prioritization discussion is really quick because you are just comparing 2 impacts on the same metrics. So having this do not only help for prioritization, but it as well help for reporting and consolidating metrics or KRs at an area level. So you got your roadmaps, you have defined your visions, you got your insights, you have defined your teams, You have defined how you want to measure your success with your OKRs. You have your framework set now. But this is not yet finished. At Uber, we have 3 techniques that we use all along the roadmap definition process that I really want to share with you because I find them really powerful. The first one, less is more. It's easy to think that with tech, everything is possible. But we are all evolving in a constrained world. We are resource dependent. And we can't build everything we want. We can't satisfy all the stakeholders or all the user needs with the defined and constrained tech resource that we have at our disposal. One important concept we have at Uber is to highlight in our roadmap document what are the things we will not be working on. These have the main advantage on reflecting to stakeholders that we have considered their ask, we have heard them, and we have made explicitly some trade-off in order to work on things that are more important for us. The second one, don't do this alone. So having a roadmap, defining a roadmap, it's a team-wide effort. At Uber, it's a company-wide effort. We engage with everyone within the company in order to define a roadmap. This is a heavy process, but this ensures that you can execute faster down the road. So for the new product I'm working on, Uber Pay, that allow every customer on the platform to use their preferred method of choice, what we did is, as I mentioned earlier, we got to the different markets. We basically got the different payment landscape. We did some user interviews and so on. And when we came up and we craft our roadmaps, we really invite stakeholders really early on in the process in order to ensure that we can get feedback and work with them on defining the roadmap and selling them our roadmap and our vision. So gathering feedback from stakeholders is something you should definitely do, but as well, pitching them your roadmap and your vision, it's something that is really powerful because then you don't become the only salesperson for your roadmap, but you start to bring in advocates along with you. And last but not least, the roadmap is a 3 to 6 month document. That's a mid-time frame. And during that time, things might change. Your market might change, the user problem might change, new regulation might come up, or any other external factor might impact your product or your market dynamics. So it's important to keep your roadmap updated in order to ensure that you're still moving to the right direction and you're still aiming toward the same destination and to give transparency to the different stakeholders. At Uber, we have 2 main processes in order to ensure that we keep stakeholders updated with our roadmaps. The first one is that we have regular newsletters sent by each product team, usually on a bi-weekly cadence, where we highlight the progress we have made on our roadmaps, and we as well surface the different and recent learnings that we got from user research or from our data. That's the first one. The second process is monthly roadmap review. Monthly roadmap review are happening at an area level, such as payments, for example, and it's the opportunity for every team, every product team within the area to basically share progress about their roadmap, the highlights, the lowlights, and any things that don't go as planned, or any user research that they have made and the learnings they got. This feedback gets propagated all the way to the top management. That's ensure that everyone have the same view about how you are executing and how you are delivering and the progress you are making towards your roadmap. If you need to remember 3 things from these talks, the first one is the framework. Define a framework that allows you to set your destination, set your long-term goals, and tie it back with the path that you are taking right now. The second thing is keep it flexible. Ensure that you give you enough space in order to execute and define your product solution at a later stage, as long as you will gather more insights. And the third one is collaboration. Involve your stakeholders early enough in the process in order to ensure that you get feedback from them and that they become advocate for your roadmap and your product. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Questions? Yeah. We had a question there, question here. Do we have volunteers with the microphones? Perfect. I think this gentleman was the first one. Yep.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I'm Andrew from USCON. And regarding OKRs, it's generally connected to the previous speech. The question is, what is the smallest unit where Steam unit, I mean, where the OKRs are decomposed? So, for example, is it some big direction of, or is it just a small team of a few engineers? So, what is the team unit for OKRs?
So I'm going to take my example. So currently, as I mentioned, I'm working on the Uber Pay product. The team that we have is about 8 to 9 people. And we already have our own OKRs for such team. And I think it doesn't matter the size of your team. Every time you need to ensure that basically the team that you're working on have clear goals and clear way to measure that the goals they are marching towards in order to ensure that you basically are able to assess the work you are delivering. So I think it's not a matter of like the team size that much. It's more the mentality of ensuring that you want to track things and you want to ensure that you track how you're performing and how your team is delivering. So even with a 4-people team, I think that's still worth it to have OKRs. They can be the one tying back to, let's say, a broader area level and not only a specific product. But I think it's worth to measure your progress that you are making in terms of delivery.
Thanks. Hey, I'm Ihor. I'm working as the product manager on freelance. And my question is on themes. This is something which seems very abstract. And how does it affect some measurable results you achieve? I mean, the themes. Could you just make an example, share an example? How do you use it in Uber?
What do we use? Sorry?
About themes.
Oh, themes. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the examples I put there is, let's take a new example. For the Uber Pay product that I'm working right now, what we have identified is one of our key pillars is access, allowing basically offering the payment of choice that users want to use in different markets, allow them to enable access on the platform. Because one of the main steps at Uber during your onboarding process is basically being able to onboard a payment method in order to pay for a trip later on. So one of our key pillars is access. One of the different big rocks we have are split across the different users we have. So Uber is a marketplace with riders on one side of the fence and drivers on the other side of the fence. It's become even more complicated when we start integrating it. But basically, all those different users have some needs regarding payment methods. So how we think about that is we basically break down the different, let's say, big rocks that we have defining per those user segments, and we kind of gather them. So one of our themes is basically to work on payment acceptance for our riders in cash markets. One of the other themes is to work on payment acceptance for drivers on different cash markets. So they're basically really the different areas that you're going to focus on. Is it answering your question? Yeah?
Okay, the next one.
Hello, my name is Ruslan. I'm a product manager at tickets.ua. My question is regarding the vision. Who is responsible for the vision at Uber? Who has the final say? And have you experienced a case where different products have different visions and there might be a conflict?
Thanks, that's a great question. So as a product manager, you are responsible for driving the vision definition. But driving the vision definition. That means that you are as well working with other teams within the payment ecosystem in order to ensure that basically you come together with this vision definition. The different teams that are working on this is the different user research team, because you need a lot of insights, you need some market data, you need some competitor analysis, you need some user insights. You work a lot as well with your data scientists, your data analysts, in order to crunch some data and quantitative insights. And at the end, again, this is a collaborative process, right? So you basically share that with your different stakeholders. And by stakeholders, what I mean is not only external departments. But there is as well other product teams that might not work on payments, but that use your services, payments in their different experience, that want to know as well about that vision. So you're pitching that as well to them. And the one that have usually the final say, it's an agreement between the different product directors that we have that the vision there is going toward the right direction. So my answer would be, this is a collaborative process. You should strive to involve the different stakeholders and as well the other product teams in order to get feedback and ensure that the direction you're getting is the right, not only for you and your user, but as well for other people within the company.
Hi, thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Olga. I work with retention and product development at Trionica. I wanted to ask you about insight collection from support. You said that it's important to gather the information that collect from customers and get it transferred to the marketing or product department. The problem that we've encountered is that support agents don't always distinguish between the problem of one customer and the problem that many customers face. So I wanted to ask, how is the transfer process set up at Uber? And maybe there are specific questions that support are trained to ask customers, or how to make them how to help them see a bigger picture, a bigger problem that customers encounter.
That's a great question. So at Uber, we have 3 different steps to do that, or 3 different processes to do customer support ticket classification. The first one is we have a self-serve model. So if you have used Uber, whenever you start reporting any problems during your experience, you basically have a tree of choice that allow you to report your experience or the problem during your experience on a specific and designated area. So that's a first level of classifications that we have. Whenever we have gotten that classifications, we're able to route those tickets to specific product teams. That's the first solution. The second one is, obviously, sometimes this process can fail. So we have algorithms that are looking at the text into those different tickets, and that apply classifications automatically. But algorithm can fail as well. So we have a third step in the process. And the third step is we have manual intervention from people directly triaging those kind of tickets to the specific buckets. As a product manager, what that's allow you to do is looking at specific buckets, for example, for me, looking at payments, then going down to my products, and then going down to the different subcategories that they have created while I was launching my product and working with the support team in order to see what's the biggest buckets or what's the biggest pain point for my customer using my product.
Okay, I think we have time for one question here. Can we get a mic here? Yeah, you can take mine. That will be faster.
My name is Ilya. I'm product owner at Levi9. The question is about the framework. So was it already given to you when you joined the organization, or you participated in building a framework? And was it an internal choice, or you invited someone from external parties to build up a framework? Thank you.
So the framework was already existing when I joined Uber. I use it as a user of the framework as let's say when I was defining the roadmap with my team for the different cycle. I've been using it like 5 times now, and basically what I wanted to share with you today is how I think that framework helped me have a smoother interaction with all my stakeholders and basically like setting my product direction compared to the different experience I had in previous company. As I mentioned, I think really the key success of that framework is that within a short amount of time, whenever you have a new request coming up, you are able to handle prioritization pretty quickly. So you're able to see, okay, is it tying to my vision? Is it tying to the themes I'm working on? Is it tying to the different objectives and results I'm actually working on? Yes or no? And with this, you can have a really pragmatic answer and a really insight-driven answer to your stakeholders. So this is the main thing that I like about this framework, and as well all the collaborative things that we are bringing as well along with.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.